What's going on, boys and girls? Welcome back to another video by yours truly. I took a good long gander the other day live on stream at Zani's kit and went over it, and I came to the conclusion that it is so absurdly convoluted and confusing that it's worth just making an on-paper guide for you guys. And hopefully, in layman's terms, I do a pretty good job explaining to you how her kit functions, the role of it, and what your goals are to do with this character, as well as some of the pros and cons of her kit. And that's pretty much what this video is for. Okay, so Zani's kit in a nutshell, trying to be as simplistic as I can without making it too overly complex or confusing to the viewer. She's a heavy attack specialist, which, by the way, she only can use her heavy attacks inside of her ultimate, which means she's pop ult reliant as well. She's counterattack centric, which means you're going to be relying on counterattacks to bring the most out of her kit. I'll explain that later. And then Resonance Liberation Reliant. We're going to go over all the details. It's neatly organized. But here's one of the important details of her kit that's problematic. She needs teammates to apply Spectral Frazzle, meaning she can't apply it herself. She has nothing in her kit that specifies applying Spectral Frazzle herself, which means you absolutely need at least one other teammate to apply Spectral Frazzle. Why, Smack? Why is this the case? Because Spectral Frazzle gives her Ember stacks, which, by the way, they stack up to 60 stacks in total, and those 60 stacks can be converted into a 600% multiplier that can be utilized on her outro skill. You know how I think Peeb has a ridiculous outro skill as well? So does Zani. Zani has a outro skill that's gonna hit like a fucking truck. But that's not the whole purpose. In fact, that's not even why it's so important. Ember stacks are important because as soon as you get Ember stacks, they convert into Blaze, which is her forte circuit. And Blaze converts into a multiplier for her heavy attacks inside of her ult. And her heavy attacks inside of her ult hit like a truck. They hit for about 400% based off of what I've seen. And the Blaze can be converted into another like 400% or somewhere around there. So imagine Zani hitting 3 times with a heavy attack inside of her whole ult with that massive fucking claymore, that great sword from Monster Hunter. Imagine 800%, 800%, 800%, 2400% multiplier of basic attacks that are heavy attacks, obviously. And the crazy thing about that, she has an ultimate that nukes on top of that. And so we're looking at probably about a 3600 multiplier, 3600% on the dome with the 3 heavies on top of the finishing ultimate inside of her ult. We're talking about somebody hitting so hard with basic attacks. You've never seen this before. You've never seen somebody hit this hard with heavy attacks, right? Like psh, psh, psh. It's probably going to be like 100k, 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 100k. So you remember Arataki Ito back in the Genshin Impact days when he first came out? Nobody's seen somebody hit so fucking hard with just basic attacks, bro. It was just fucking bam, bam, bop, bop, bop. That's how I envision Zani's. Now, this is purely descriptive of what I've seen on paper, but that's what I'm thinking she's going to hit for when she releases, which is in the next 48 hours. So with all that being explained to you, it's very important that you have people applying Spectral Frazzle stacks. In fact, now that you understand that, I think her best team might very well be, I know this sounds crazy, it might very well be Peeb and Spectral Rover, just because they're gonna be able to funnel those fucking stacks over to her like that, to where she's gonna have ample Blaze, and then the Blaze is then gonna be converted into attacks for her ult, and it's gonna pop off. Not to mention a whole different beast. She has dual scaling on her heavy attacks. This is also why she's going to hit like a truck. So in her Resonance Liberation, when you pop her ult, it enables her heavy attacks to scale off of both heavy attack and Spectral Frazzle multipliers. You guys who don't know the math don't understand how fucking absurd this is, because heavy attack is going to basically entail all of the additive damage multipliers you receive, right? Increase spectral damage, increase heavy attack damage from the substats. All the little multipliers you get from team building are going to go in to increasing those heavy attacks from an additive standpoint. But then apart from that, she gets a Spectral Frazzle multiplier, and this is an amplify. It's not an increase, which means it's multiplicative. It's a separate multiplier. So her heavy attack has dual scaling in a broken way, provided you have a fucking Peeb on your account, because Peeb gives 100% Spectral Frazzle amplification, not additive, not increase, amplify, which means you're gonna take all of those multipliers, come up with one big number, and then Peeb's gonna say, let's give it another 100%. Let's multiply it times 2, basically. So that's why Peeb and everybody in the community is thinking, oh, you have to have Peeb, you have to have Peeb. But if I'm being honest with you, her signature weapon, plus she has a little multiplier in here somewhere, here it is. Her signature weapon, plus this 20% Spectral Frazzle Amplify from Sunburst, actually gives her in total a 70% multiplier. And so the 70% multiplier is a little bit shy of what Peeb provides, but it's enough to like where her damage is just so big that it's not going to be a game changer. It's not going to be like insane. In fact, it would just be fucking overkill if you have Peeb and her sig. I'm only saying that for the people who think I need Peeb. Now you can be patient and wait for us to test these things. As soon as she comes out, I'm going to show you how she performs in 4K with Spectral Rover as soon as she arrives. But from what I've calculated, Peeb is definitely going to be overkill and a little bit less than overkill too, which means very valuable, but not needed. I know that sounds like cope, but it's really not. Let's continue on. Scales for heavy attack and Spectral Frazzle, dual scaling, right? Consumes Blaze for bigger multipliers. We've already went over that. Embers convert to Blaze for Zani, 5 stacks per Ember. This is what I was telling y'all about. This is why applying Spectral Frazzle is so important. It's because then it's going to convert those into Blaze for 5 stacks per Ember. And so let's say somebody like the Spectral Rover does his ult 6 stacks, does the enhanced skill 2 stacks. That's 8 stacks of Spectral Frazzle now converted directly into 8 stacks of Helio Embers. Those Embers are now going to give you 8 times 5 Blaze, which is 40 Blaze. See how that works? And then another thing that's worth mentioning is when Zani pops her ultimate, she gets another 50 Blaze just from popping the ult for free. So 50 plus 40, we're now at 90 Blaze. It extends the cap to 150. We're only missing 60 more Blaze to have 150 total Blaze. Why is that important? Because every time Zani consumes Blaze with her heavy attack, she consumes 40 of it. Now I want you to think about this for a second. If she consumes 40 Blaze, and she only has 150 inside of her ult, that means after 3 hits, she's only gonna have 30 Blaze remaining. That's exactly enough for you to be able to cast her ultimate immediately, because her ultimate has 2 conditions of being procced. Either you have 30 or less Blaze, or 8 seconds has gone by. And so the rotations are gonna be quite interesting when she comes out. Now, are you a bit confused? You should be. Like I said, this girl's kit on paper is one of the most complex kits I've ever seen. Now, why is counterattack important? Smack, why are you saying she's counterattack centric? Well, she's counterattack centric more so for the meta slaves and the people who want to play her on an optimal level. Her counterattacks simply give her more benefits as opposed to you not using the counterattacks. Case in point, there's targeted action, and I put no perks next to it. This is if you hold down her freaking like charge ability, her skill, and nobody hits you. So you just like let it go on its own, or you just manually let it go and start doing your thing. You can do that and you're gonna do some damage. But if you do the forcible repost, which means you time it while somebody's about to attack you, what's gonna happen is you're actually gonna get a 30% damage reduction for 2 seconds, a decrease in vibration strength reduction by 10%, by the way, for easier shield breaking capabilities. You're also going to recover 10 Blaze on the last stage of that counterattack. Oh, and I forgot one little perk in here. Stagnation occurs too when you counterattack. And then the final perk is when you do this in her sword mode, you get 20% Spectral Frazzle amplification on Zani. So that's another multiplicative amplification from Zani that occurs from either doing targeted action or forcible repost, which once again, forcible repost has all of the perks. The other thing about both of these abilities is they're considered Spectral Frazzle damage, which means they can take the 100% multiplier from Peeb and any other Spectral Frazzle multipliers that you receive in the game. Massive. This also showed me that the shield mode is meh. The shield mode is really more so for just building up redundant energy so that you can use the sword mode, crisis response protocol. But using shield mode is definitely like the smallest value on her kit. It really is. So the way I would lay it out is you start off with Zani in shield mode, get the redundant energy filled up by doing basic attacks and maybe even pop a shield since it only has a 5-second cooldown. You can pop a resonant skill, it'll be back. Once redundant energy is fully filled up, you're now able to access the sword mode. This is outside of the ult, by the way. So the sword mode, you do a counter, which is called a forcible repost. That's going to give you stagnation to the enemy, 30% damage reduction, 10 blaze recovery, as well as an activation of sunburst, which is going to give you 20 spectral frazzle amplification. And you're going to get all those perks activated, which now enables you to pop her ultimate. Now, what's crazy is you only have a 14-second duration once you do this, which means once you go into her ultimate, you got 14 seconds to make use of that 20% spectral frazzle amplification that came from the sunburst. I know it's a lot of yap, but basically you do need a bit of a like load up before just spamming ultimate. You're not just going spam ult as soon as Zani hits the field. No, you got to get your spectral frazzle stacks built up from MC or P first. You then got to go through this so that you can secure that 20% spectral frazzle amplify and some little blaze build up in the process. Once you have all that stuff, then you go into the ultimate so that you have all that shit backloaded and you can do maximum big dick damage. Now, for a casual, you might be thinking that sounds like a bit much. Again, this is just a player on an optimal level. On a casual level, just play the player however the hell you want to play her. I think you're still going to be impressed with what damage numbers she's pulling off. Down here, I don't really need to explain this to you guys. This is more so like just for you to read for your own benefit. It's all resonance liberation conditions and perks that you'll get. The last thing I want to mention to you though, is when you're inside of her ultimate, some of the heavy attacks hit harder than the other heavy attacks. And you know the ones that hit harder and how you make them hit harder? Countering. Yep. So countering inside of her ult will also allow you to get access to the stronger heavy attacks. So that's once again why I said she's a counterattack centric character. That said, if you're not good at countering and you just do the regular attacks, she still hits like a fucking bus. She does. So that's why I was saying the balancing act with Zani, she's absolutely probably going to be one of my favorite characters, or she probably will be my favorite character that's ever been released, because there's so much complexity in her kit, but they still struck a balance between surface level enjoyment for the casuals and below surface level enjoyment for the hardcore players that really want to sink their teeth into her kit and make that shit pop off. Do you need Peeb? No. But should you want Peeb? Yes. Because my ideal team, based off of all the things that I've looked at, is going to be Male Rover, Peeb, and Zani. One thing about Zani is because she has synergistic value with the Spectro set, the new one, she gets a free 20% crit rate, right? And then you rock all this crit rate on their substats inside of her kit, and then her freaking inherent stats have crit rate too. This bitch has like 100% crit rate with a crit damage main stat. So the last thing you got to worry about with Zani is her not having crit rate. She has plenty of that shit. So yeah, I think she's going to be an absolute monster of a unit. But if you skip Peeb, you just know you're going to see people 1,000,000,000% hitting a lot harder with Peeb, because that 100% spectral frazzle amplification bonus is fucking insane. That said, she's not a necessity, but goddamn it, she's valuable. Look forward to me dropping a actual guide, because this is just not enough to explain how her kit functions. I really need a hands-on experience to explain to you guys what you can do. She's got so many different like avenues of how you can do things with her. You got to wait for people to like drop the guides. Yeah, this is a character that needs guides. Like I said, this is a character that actually isn't the brain dead, just press the button and shit, you know? But I look forward to dropping that for you. That's going to wrap up this video. Peace, love, and happiness. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.